This is a true incident that happened in Korea. Their students ran out of an eatery and shouted out loud the owner was crazy. Mr. Park entered the eatery to see what was going on. Sun Young turned around with a fearful face. Her husband was dying. She was holding a bloody knife. Mr. Park was extremely astonished because Sun Young had a happy marriage with her husband. Why did she stab her husband? She had a mental disorder after taking birth control pills. When she was taken into the police custody, she called a lawyer for help who was also her friend. She said something haunted her and commanded her to stab her husband. However, lawyer No Chucky asked her for 450,000 won per hour for the barrister's fees. Sun Young remember when Chucky couldn't pay for the tuition fee. Sun Young lent Chucky her whole savings after a while working at a garment factory. Chucky was very touched by Sun Young's action. However, the lawyer forgot her favor after a dozen of years. Sun Young felt so helpless. At a pharmacy, the pharmacist was introducing the hallucinogen for women. She said it sold like hot cakes thanks to celebs promotion. Beck took the pill on the spot, surprising the pharmacist. He even asked her if he could take 2 pills a day. Beck was a public defender. He tried it to test the effect and used it as an evidence. His client was a staff at a pharmaceuticals company. She was fired after reporting the side effect of the medicine. After half a day taking the pill, Beck didn't suffer from any side effect. His secretary reminded him that he was a man. Chucky found him for a talk. As the lawyer of the pharmaceuticals company, she suggested a reconcilement of 250 million won. Seeing the expensive watch on her wrist, he said money was a good thing in South Korea. Could a watch can appease thousands of women's anger whose health was harmed? No, Chucky was an ace lawyer with the highest winning rate in a big law firm. She would break business ethics when she won this lawsuit. Before she left there, Beck twisted her neck. She didn't know that Beck wanted her to mend her ways. However, she did feel more comfortable after the twist. When the trial took place, Beck still didn't have the evidences of the medicine's side effect. He could only use the reason that his client was unfairly fired to ask for a labor compensation. Chucky threw at him a bomb. She investigated the relationship with Hyun Sik and Yoon Young-ju. The judge also got the answer from the person concerned. Chucky grabbed this chance. There was a reason to think that Young-ju filed suit against Hyun Sik because he broke up with her. Though their affair destroyed his marriage, it didn't cause an economic damage. Young-ju was pitiful. She apparently saw the report of side effect on his laptop but couldn't prove it. Not only did she lose the lawsuit but also her honor. Hyun Sik gave Chucky a slap. Because she let everyone know he had an affair, Chucky believed that he could soothe his wife with a high-end bag, still better than paying for the compensation. Jang Ki-do recognized her competence. Byung-chun wanted her to be his partner. These 3 men were brothers. Ki-do, CEO of Jangsan law firm. Cho Hyun-sik, CEO of Kong-sung Pharmaceutical. These 2 companies belonged to a group. The chairman of the group is their eldest brother. Chucky was the group's lawyer. However, Hyun-sik didn't accept Chucky to be their partner. Considering her his own granddaughter, Byung-chun promised to share part of his shares to her. It was clearly unfair, so the CEOs gave her a mission. This was the report of the birth control pill's side effect. Currently, there were at least 5 victims have been discovered with serious hallucinations. She was told to handle everything before the investigators found the evidences. If she got the job well done, they would accept her to be their partner. Chucky was very surprised with the list of victims. One of them was her friend who asked her for help. Ki-do told her to prove Sun Young's mental illness. Obviously she had a solution in mind. The next day, she went to the prison to see Sun Young. Sun Young couldn't believe that Chucky bit the hand that fed her. Sun Young felt so hopeless. At 4 a.m., she was told that Sun Young tried to end her life. Chucky succeeded. As soon as she went to work, Hyun Sik gave her a round of applause. Sun Young was proved to be mentally ill, which was no related to their pills. As promised, the CEOs threw a big ceremony for her promotion when she was taking the floor. The police officers came. She was arrested for inciting Sun Young to end her own life. A day ago, Chucky asked Sun Young to pretend to end her own life, to make it bigger. After the media shared about the case, the police would dig into it for sure. Through medical tests, they could prove that Sun Young got a mental disorder due to taking the birth control pills. As a result, she wouldn't be sentenced for stabbing her husband. Moreover, the pharmaceutical would pay her a compensation. At night, she asked to see Beek and gave him the internal report of the pharmaceutical. She asked him to be Sun Young's lawyer. Her plan was to stop the company from selling the harmful pills. She felt so sorry when Sun Young was in the hospital. Sun Young really hurt herself. She shared with Chucky about her hardships. Sun Young was still that kind. Her sacrifice was worth it. they could save thousands of women from the harmful pills. Chucky was detained. Seebeek bailed her out as he knew she was a good person. Chucky wanted to find out if someone in her company denounced her. Thanks to Officer Young, she knew it was her boss. Chucky was screwed. It would be the last night she could stay in the condo arranged by her company, also the last time to drive the car. She took responsibility for her actions. She knelt down before Ki-doo. He was very angry. As for him, she stabbed him in the back. For Sun Young, all the directors agreed to suspend her for a year. Byung-chun gave her a chance to work as a public defender at Lawyer Bong's office. Chucky traveled to work by bus, and her colleague at the new workplace was Seebeek, even though she was not used to the simple working environment. She had to persevere as it was Byung-chun's challenge. She couldn't stand working overtime. It was pouring outside. She thought that Seebeek would shelter her from the rain. He didn't help her as she thought. When she didn't know what to do, a car appeared in the rain. It was Hyun-sik. She just got into the car and Seebeek saw it. Chucky caused a big loss for Hyun-sik's company. Hyun-sik had an evil intention. He touched her thigh. Chucky felt so uncomfortable. Despite her warnings, he still tried to touch. She banged her head against his. Someone driving a motorcycle stopped the car. Seebeek dragged Hyun-sik out of the car. Chucky stopped Seebeek from punching Hyun-sik. Hyun-sik was one of her bosses and she couldn't hurt him. Seebeek listened to her and they left together, after taking her home. Seebeek left without asking for her phone number. Anyways, they were working together. Chucky received a phone call about Hyun-sik's death in a strange posture. Chucky was suspicious of Seebeek. She asked him about that. However, the inspector was taking with him. Seebeek asked her for the evidences. The officer listed out many motives Seebeek might have for the crimes. However, the officer didn't have the evidences. Seebeek leisurely walked out of the police station. Hyun-sik's death was mysterious. The last one he called was Chucky. Chucky was also a suspect. However, the police didn't have the evidences. Hyun-sik's death was also a good thing. Chucky and Seebeek worked with their whole heart. Guidong's case gave them a headache. Seebeek gave Chucky a chance to prove her abilities. However, only Guidong's mother answered her questions. Guidong only ate his ice cream, which annoyed Chucky. Guidong was an emotionally immature person. When Hae-yun kept saying sorry, Chucky understood how hard it was for public defenders. Seebeek was used to it. Chucky couldn't accept it as she only cared about money. She did not want to continue working without being paid, so she called a reporter to share about Guidong's case, which would improve her fame and pass Byung-chun's challenge. And she could get back to her position. Guidong accidentally caused someone's death for a cake. Considering his IQ, Chucky made sure to plead his innocence in front of everyone. Before the trial, she bought Guidong a decent ensemble. Hae-yun was too touched to speak. Chucky just wanted him to look better when the reporters interviewed them. She also gave him a pack of fried potatoes and asked him to be fierce if someone wanted to take it from him. She wanted to let the judge see his unusual behavior. However, his action made her hopeless. Despite his low IQ, he was a grateful person, as she treated him well. He didn't go as crazy as the first time they met. Chucky's plan was ruined. Guidong was put in jail for a year. Seebeek knew she used them to promote herself. He didn't have a high opinion of her. If all public defenders in Korea were like her, poor people wouldn't be treated fairly. Though she kept talking back to him, Seebeek could still turn her into a better person. In the end, she still decided to defend Guidong again. They had been living on the pension. Hae-yun got an injury when collecting scrap. She gave Chucky an envelope of money and said Guidong's pocket money was lost. Besides, she gave the lawyer a special gift. Chucky saw only a few fruits and a pack of snacks, nothing special. However, these were Hae-yun's everything. When she visited Guidong, she realized that he couldn't take care of himself. He considered her his sister and showed her his diaper. He bought a watch with his pocket money. Though he didn't know how to read a clock, he waited every second to see his mom again. Chucky was touched. A few days later, someone brought her a kite which was handmade by Guidong. He missed a chance to give it to her after losing his case. Seeing the kite flying, she remembered her childhood. Guidong's freedom was to stay with his own mother. The kite was hooked on the electric wires. She grabbed a broom to take it out. Unfortunately, she slipped. Seebeek came in time to save her from falling out of the building. Her forehead hit his nose and he blacked out. She tried to wake him up, and when he opened his eyes, he lost his memories. He just fooled her. She was too angry to remember that he saved her life twice, so that she didn't thank him though his nose was bleeding. She even thought that he was spying on her. Seebeek told her that he had been living opposite for 2 years. Chucky wasn't pleased with that. They had worked together for a few months. However, he avoided her after work though they were neighbors. Seebeek said he hated public defenders who only cared about money like her. her handbag valued equal to his yearly salary. He believed that she earned money by violating professional ethics. Chucky didn't oppose it. There are a lot of people who hate her. When she was down mood, a 70-year-old man contacted her. He was arrested for taking pictures of women with his phone, and asked her to defend him against the charges. Chucky felt so annoyed that she refused him. However, she was interested in the abandoned newborn. Chucky was very sympathetic because she was raised in an orphanage. Chucky said Eugene was unworthy of a decent person. Eugene explained why she abandoned her newborn. She was also an orphan. Her boyfriend abandoned her when she got pregnant. The child was also born at a center for unmarried mothers. Eugene abandoned her child when she had a new boyfriend. Even though she was not pitiful, Chucky wouldn't make it hard to her. Eugene would be put in jail no matter how hard Chucky tried to defend her. Abandoning a newborn is a serious offense in South Korea. Chucky wanted her to work in a bakery after she came out of prison. However, she was pregnant again. Abortion is not allowed in Korea. Chucky felt helpless. Eugene promised not to abandon her second child. The thing was that she didn't register for her first child's birth yet. Chucky helped Eugene register the baby's birth. Also, she helped find a good family for the baby without asking Eugene to pay for her efforts. She really wanted to be highly paid. So she asked her friend to write an article about her kindness. In whatever way, such a news wasn't hot enough. Compared to it, people care more about the rich's pets. This is the reality in South Korea. To satisfy their special hobbies, the arrogant rich kid didn't even spare children. Duchang didn't know Junwoo find a volunteer lawyer. Seebeck grew cross when seeing Duchang's behaviors. He kicked off the outside mirror and threw it at Duchang. All of a sudden, Duchang didn't believe that Junwoo could pay for a lawyer. Seebeck gave him a punch as an explanation. They were taken to the police station for violence. Chucky appeared as Seebeck's lawyer. She was worried if he got hurt. In fact, the weak Duchang was no match for him. Duchang had no choice but to accept the reconcilement. As Seebeck used violence on Duchang, he couldn't continue defending Junwoo's mother. He asked Chucky to take over it. She didn't want to do an unpaid job, but the next day, Seebeck took Junwoo and his mother to the office. Hee-young was deaf-mute and Chucky wanted to use them to promote herself. Therefore, she asked Seebeck about the conflict between Duchang and Hee-young. They decided to help Hee-young and her son together. Junwoo was a secondary school student. He was too understanding that make Seebeck feel pity for him. He didn't want Duchang to be punished for bullying him. He only needed her mother to be free from jail. Chucky became the only one who could save them. Hee-young was accused of the recidivism. Chucky tried to prove that Hee-young didn't steal anything in Duchang's home, so she wouldn't be framed as a recidivist. When Chucky explained about the different circumstances of Hee-young and her son, the prosecutor said she was the judge's sympathy, and they argued until the night fell, until all the jurors were dismissed. The prosecutor got a sore throat and the judge even dozed off. After being challenged, the chief judge could not stand the prosecutor's stubbornness. Putting the poor in jail wouldn't raise his achievements. The prosecutor then changed the accusation and Hee-young wouldn't be put in jail thanks to that. However, she had to pay a fine of 200 million won. Seebeck saw the change of Chucky when she worked overtime to defend the poor for free. She was no longer the lawyer who only cared about money. They grabbed a drink to celebrate their victory. As Duchang failed to handle his house helper, he got beaten by his father. This time, Suk-gu decided to help Duchang save his face and gave the two public defenders a lesson. When Suk-gu was enjoying a massage, a mysterious pair of hands touched him. It was too late when Suk-gu realized. A man who looked like Seebeck dragged Suk-gu to a swimming pool and drowned him in the water. Suk-gu was drowned to death. He left the world for good. Chucky was dead drunk. The next morning, she woke up in Seebeck's home. So what happened last night? It was possible that after she got drunk, Seebeck took her home and then took Suk-gu's life. Although it was still an open-ended question, Kyung-jin kept her eye on Seebeck. She believed that Seebeck was the criminal, who could end someone's life to help the poor. Chi-sik, who was a chef, was also a suspect, and the tapes in his restaurant were the same, the type wrapped around Suk-gu's body. Seebeck helped Chi-sik deliver pizza to an orphanage. The director of the orphanage was a bad guy. Seebeck seemed to lose his temper looking at Kang-ael. In the evening, Chucky came to the orphanage with the birthday gift to Sun Young's son. Kang-ael said the boy was sleeping. He held her hand when she was going to leave. She was raised there, but she didn't appreciate him, because he was so evil. He definitely wouldn't survive through the night. Soon late, Kang-ael was dragged to the beach. Same as Hyun-sik and Suk-gu, the death was so uncanny. Who hated them that much? In a short time, a few rich men were drowned to death. One was found by the shore and another was found near the drainage ditch. Hyun-sik's death was the most horrific. He died on his knees next to the bathtub. this serial murder case received extensive media coverage. Attracting the attention of high-ranking South Korean officials, they assigned an ace officer to investigate the case. The victims were all rich men of the same age. It was believed that the culprit really hated the rich. She could convict of the murder once she found the reason of the first victim's death. Kyung-jin looked down on stupid officers. She went to Hyun-sik's villa alone to dig into it. There were no signs of forcible entry in the crime scene. That meant Hyun-sik opened the door. He was related to the culprit. Hyun-sik only came there in the weekend to see a female student. However, she couldn't come that night. It was the following morning when she came. She was the first one to see the body and call the police. She wasn't the culprit, for sure. The culprit was aware of Hyun-sik's habit. People around him were examined and verified to have solid alibi. There was only one possibility that Hyun-sik had been watched. There were many cameras around his company. Taking time to check on each footage, she found a suspicious car which was owned by Seebeck. He seemed to follow after Hyun-sik for a month before his death. Kyung-jin wasn't a normal officer. Instead of arresting Seebeck, she went to find the woman who once took Hyun-sik to court. It helped confirm Kyung-jin's if there had been a transaction. It was possible that Hyun-sik opened the door for Seebeck. However, there was no direct evidences. She received a phone call about the death of the director of Haesong Children's Home. The third richest old man died in the same way. Kyung-jin got even more interested in this case. She went to Kang Il-'s previous workplace, and found out that Kang Il had a relation with Hyun-sik and Suk-gu. Kyung-jin wanted to confirm if Seebeck had been in contact with Kang Il. It was true that Seebeck was related to Kang Il's death. Suk-gu's body was found next to the drainage ditch. Kyung-jin talked to Suk-gu's son, who had a conflict with Seebeck. Du-chang said Seebeck gave him a wound. Indeed, Seebeck was involved. Chuck-hee was inextricably bound up with that. Kyung-jin asked if Hyun-sik bullied Chuck-hee when he was still alive. That was why Seebeck took his life. They were just colleagues, which wouldn't make up a motive for murder. When she showed the evidences that Seebeck's spying on Hyun-sik, Chuck-hee was very surprised. They worked in the same office and lived in the same neighborhood. He didn't have a solid alibi. Chuck-hee couldn't believe that a kind public defender like Seebeck sent them to eternity. He was always friendly and generous. However, he targeted those who were arrogant. A rich man drove his car like the streets were his. Seebeck got annoyed and challenged Jae-ho with a compete. Jae-ho's car was much more expensive, yet his driving skill was no match to Seebeck. He pressed Jae-ho hard. Seebeck took his own way when he won the race. Jae-ho grew cross as he had never been challenged. Jae-ho was head of the Bureau of Investigation who did dirt work. Yoon-young applied for a position of a police officer. Jae-ho interviewed her at a karaoke. She had no choice but to come there for her career. Jae-ho's purpose wasn't simple. Yoon-young finally realized his true colors. It was too late. Jae-ho sexually abused her. 8 years later, Yoon-young's mother found a public defender for her. Because their failure in the suit, she lost all her savings after Yoon-young was put in a madhouse. Being all ears to Yoon-young's mother, Chuck-hee wondered which barefaced law company defended Jae-ho. It was Jangsan, where Chuck-hee had devoted for 10 years. She called her former colleague for the records. It was Chuck-hee who was in charge of the case. Back then, she completely believed in Jae-ho's words as he paid her a lot. After becoming a public defender, she understood what Seebeck meant. Her legal knowledge became a weapon to protect the rich. She owed the victim an apology. Yoon-young lost her passion to be a police officer. Chuck-hee admitted that she defended Jae-ho back then. It was like another pain for Yoon-young. She didn't believe that Chuck-hee would demand justice for her. Because Jae-ho had a great power, Chuck-hee came to Jangsan for the records of Jae-ho's case. But the litigation time limit was running out. There was no big deal. The death was coming to Jae-ho. He opened the door when the bell rang. That was someone he knew. The man dragged Jae-ho to the toilet. He was tortured in the same way. Luckily, he was still alive. Kyung-jin went to the crime scene the following morning. An officer said the neighbor found Jae-ho the previous night. He was still breathing thanks to promptly no useful evidences was found in the scene. Jae-gun insisted that Seebeck was the culprit. Kyung-jin also suspected him, but she hadn't found the proof. Jae-gun believed that Seebeck wanted to be hailed as a savior. By working as a public defender to punish the evil rich men and help the poor, Kyung-jin didn't agree with him, and she decided to see Seebeck. He was knowledgeable about the law and his IQ was also up to 139. As she had no proof, she was very polite with him. She asked him to help her clear her questions up. Seebeck agreed to help. Of course, it was Kyung-jin's plan. After he threw his paper cup into the trash bin, she secretly picked it up to get his DNA. A few days later, the doctor said his DNA was the same as the DNA found in the second scene. She finally found a reason to arrest Seebeck. Jae-gun had no use for Seebeck so far. He was very happy to escort him to the police station. Chucky couldn't believe that Seebeck was the culprit. She chased after Kyung-jin to ask for it. Kyung-jin told her to get ready for the investigation. They vied with each other in wits. Kyung-jin asked Seebeck why he spied on Hyun-sik. It was illegal, however, he knew how to handle the situation. He gave an explanation why he had no related to Hyun-sik's death. What about Suk-gu's case? Why was he involved in the case of Du Chang, who was Suk-gu's son? The person concerned was deaf-mute, and Seebeck knew the sign language. Why did he violate the victim's son? He said Du Chang bullied a middle school student. That was why he once talked with Suk-gu. How did you explain about your DNA found in the crime scene? Seebeck couldn't explain it. At the police station, Chucky insisted on seeing Kyung-jin. She gave the officer the bill of the meal with Seebeck on the night Suk-gu was lost. Even though she was dead drunk, she believed that the CCTV could prove that Seebeck wasn't present at the crime scene. It was unknown why his DNA was found there. Kyung-jin didn't let it go easily. Jae-ho, who was tortured to coma, also had a relation with Seebeck. She asked why he had a race with Jae-ho a few days ago. Seebeck didn't know Jae-ho was head of the Bureau of Investigation. He couldn't accept Jae-ho's overbearing behaviors. Seebeck's answers were solid enough to satisfy her doubts. Jae-gun was a typical police officer. He believed that Seebeck was just getting around, which annoyed Hyun-sik. She was sent there to lead those stupid officers. The arrest warrant had been rejected by the prosecutor's office. All the officers were dispirited, and when Seebeck was released, he saw Chucky sat nodding on the chair. They walked out of there at the crack of dawn. Chucky couldn't read his mind. She directly asked him about the DNA. The other days, he went to Chi-sik's restaurant. He saw the tapes and took a pair. Chances are Chi-sik was the culprit. Before the truth was revealed, another old man would got smoked. It was Byung-chun who raised Chucky up. Ki-do saw his father was tied on a chair. Her bruised feet was attached with electrical wires. In such a situation, most of people would choose to call the police. However, Ki-do stopped Butler Kim from calling the police. He couldn't let everyone know about his father's improper death. Ki-do and Butler Kim cleared the scene. Because Ki-do was a candidate in elections, Byung-chun did many ruthless activities. In order to protect his future, Ki-do cleaned Byung-chun's body and put him on the bed to make up a natural death. However, Butler Kim's call earlier was connected. Ki-do threatened to destroy the whole family of Butler Kim if he dared to tell the police. When investigators arrived, they did not see anything unusual. However, they felt weird about the butler's stammer and action, so they called for the help of the Bureau of Investigation and asked Ki-do out of the scene. Byung-chun's personal doctor arrived. The police knew this family wasn't common when having a personal doctor. Ki-do said he was a congressman. The policeman bowed and apologized to Ki-do for not buying into him. The personal doctor made a death certificate. Chucky was shocked at Byung-chun's death. She considered him her grandpa. He was the only one who cared for her after her grandma passed away. However, she didn't know the truth that it was him who ended her grandma's life. When she arrived, a few investigators suddenly arrived at the scene. Ki-do felt insecure. Staff at the mortuary saw Byung-chun's bruised toes. However, the death certificate said it was a natural death, so they chose to call the police. Ki-do was worried when the officers dug into it. Thus, he would bribe the officers. Chucky wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. As soon as she returned to the office, she received a call from a bakery staff. Duckman once received help from Chucky. He said he was fooled, and asked for her help. Someone hung up the phone before he finished his words. Ki-do paid him to carry the can. Only when he was locked down that he realized how serious it was. Too late to regret, because Ki-do paid for a few men to put Duckman to the sword. Very soon after, Ki-do announced to the media that the culprit was gone. When Chucky heard about it, she couldn't believe that such a coward dared, so she found Ki-do to ask about it. He gave her a good reason, as he knew Duckman called her before his death. Ki-do finally breathed a sigh of relief after knowing what Duckman told her. Chucky was so sad when the one who cared about her the most was gone. Seebeck also cared and stayed by her side when she needed someone. She was touched when he saved her many times. Nevertheless, she didn't know that Seebeck had something to do with Byung-chun's death. At 2 a.m., he entered the police station with light tread. The police on duty thought he was crazy. The crime reduction team arrived as soon as they heard the news. When Kyung-jin was verifying the identity, she turned around and saw Seebeck coming in. She was very surprised because he had already satisfied all her doubts. His purpose was very simple, which was to make Ki-do fail in the election. When Ki-do heard someone tuning himself in, he seemed to lose his mind because the election day was coming. Once the CRT dug into it, Byung-chun's crimes would be exposed. And they wouldn't be able to stop the media. the serial killer tuned himself in. It was on top search, so Kyung-jin had to speed up the progress. However, Seebaek didn't tell her about the motive for murder. He wanted her to find it out. Ki-do knew Seebaek was taking a revenge on him because of his hatred for Byung-chun. Seebaek decided to change his way as the officers still found nothing, so he asked Chuck-hee to defend him. She swore to find the truth when her colleague was said to be the culprit of her grandpa's death. Kyung-jin called her while she was working. The serial killer who took your grandpa's life wanted you to defend him. It was like a torment for her. Chuck-hee really wanted to see who he was. However, it was Seebaek, her boyfriend. She couldn't believe that the one who made her better took her grandpa's life. Feeling heartbroken, she couldn't stand on her feet. However, she couldn't be downcast forever. She had to stand up and demand justice for her grandpa. Chuck-hee was interrogated as the lawyer of the suspect. Seebaek said he attached high voltage to Byung-chun's toes, then closed the circuit breaker and drowned him in water. Chuck-hee couldn't do anything but to grind her teeth when Kyung-jin asked about his motive. He only said Byung-chun deserved it. To find evidence of his crime, they came to the crime scene. Kyung-jin led her team to the crime scene, but the place had been cleaned up. The investigation reached a deadlock. Chuck-hee was determined to make him pay for his crime by trying her best to give him a death penalty. She wanted to know why he sent her grandpa to eternity. First of all, she went to see the hostess of Seebaek's inn. Couldn't reach Seebaek on the phone. The hostess cried in silence. Chuck-hee didn't have the heart to tell her that he was imprisoned. She asked the woman, who suffers from severe dementia, about Seebaek's real identity. He was her closest relative. Her grandchild was a first grader. However, he wasn't home after school. After that, Chuck-hee went to see Seebaek's friend, though this man had a good relationship with Seebaek. He barely knew about his family. He just knew that Seebaek once worked at shoemaking factory. Chuck-hee went to see the employee who also worked there to find out the fact. He said Mr. Cha was buried in America. The old man laughed when she said Mr. Cha's son had returned to South Korea because his son died of an accident when he was a first grader. That was why he chose to move to America at this time. Chuck-hee realized that the hostess's grandson named Seebaek. The Seebaek she knew used her grandson's identity for his revenge. What was the feud between Seebaek's father and Byung-chun? To clarify the truth, she once again went to the dumpling shop of Seebaek's brother. However, it was close. Seebaek often took her there for dumplings. She climbed through the window. After 3 hours of searching, she found 3 green tapes, and the orange string hanging from the ceiling surprised her. Furthermore, the way of tying knots was exactly the same as at the crime scene. She took pictures of Chi-sik and Seebaek, then went to find Kyung-jin and gave her the evidences of Chi-sik's crime with a demand that she had to put Chi-sik on the wanted notice. However, those weren't enough to prove that Chi-sik was the culprit. Chuck-hee said Chi-sik was Seebaek's brother, and Seebaek took someone else's identity. Furthermore, she believed that they committed the crime together and Seebaek was the schemer. Chi-sik got her grandpa smoked. Seebaek tuned himself in to buy time for Chi-sik to run away. Kyung-jin thought those made sense. They saw Chi-sik taking photo with another man. Jae-ho woke up after a coma when Kyung-jin asked him to see if the attacker was one of those in the photos. Jae-ho pointed at the man with a beard. He was Dal-jae, who had been missing for years. Kyung-jin asked Jae-ho if he saw the bald man next to Dal-jae. Jae-ho said he saw only one doctor coming in. Her investigation came to a standstill again. Everyone felt impatient with these cunning brothers. They were very smart to carry out their revenge. Chi-sik, the owner of the backwoods homemade dumplings, was the schemer. Dal-jae was his loyal employee who did all the dirty works for Chi-sik, and Chi-sik only needed to pay him with dumplings. He ordered Dal-jae to help him commit a crime by drowning the arrogant rich men. Chi-sik recorded his crime with a camera. That was how they ended the victim's life. However, the crime wasn't perfect. When they were drowning Jae-ho the same way, they thought he would stop breathing like the others. Yet, Jae-ho's neighbor discovered him soon later and his life was saved. Chi-sik knew he would be exposed soon, so he broke in his last enemy's home and put Byung-chun down by himself. He did the same method of crime as Dal-jae to shift the blame on him. He took Dal-jae to the hospital at night and demanded him to take Jae-ho's life. At that point in time, Dal-jae realized that he lost his memory. Jae-ho said they once were colleagues. Dal-jae was the head of the investigation department. He couldn't accept the truth despite all the victims confirmed the same thing. It was Chi-sik who fooled him. While he was thinking, Jae-ho knocked him senseless with a bottle. Jae-ho called doctors for help, yet, it was Chi-sik who entered the room. Chi-sik gave Jae-ho a sedative drug. Then he took Dal-jae out of the hospital and showed themselves below the CCTV. When Kyung-jin came, Jae-ho insisted that the attacker was Dal-jae, who went missing for years, but when the doctor came, his mind went vague. Kyung-jin raised a doubt when one more suspect appeared. Daljae woke up in Chi-sik's place. Chi-sik had been waiting for so long to tell him the truth. Back then, Daljae was the head of the investigation department. To enhance his achievements, he tortured and forced Chi-sik to make false confessions. He even disabled Chi-sik with high voltage. Daljae couldn't believe that he did such a dirty thing as an officer. Chi-sik said Daljae lost his memory due to overdrinking after being fired. That was why Chi-sik let Daljae work at his dumpling shop. Daljae didn't buy into Chi-sik. Even a fool cannot tolerate his enemy. Chi-sik laughed and explained it to him, then put him down. Daljae got an electric shock. When the officers came, Chi-sik already disappeared. The progress of Daljae's crimes was shown on the TV that surprised Kyung-jin. Daljae was tied in the room. Chi-sik successfully shifted the blame on Daljae. He took all his enemies down. As Daljae had a mental problem, Kyung-jin half believed him. When the investigation once again fell into a deadlock, when Seebeck tuned himself in as the schemer of the serial murder, Kyung-jin asked about his motive. He only claimed that those men deserved it. Seebeck actually was buying time for Chi-sik to flee away. Chucky visited Seebeck with the information of the real Seebeck, as well as evidence of the crime that Chi-sik left behind. She believed they could arrest Chi-sik soon, so she just needed to know the truth. Different from Seebeck, she didn't think her grandpa deserved it. Was the grandpa who raised her up a bad guy? Kyung-jin told her that Chi-sik wasn't the accomplice, and showed the photo of the suspect. The culprit was the beard man. Chucky remembered that she met him at Chi-sik's dumpling shop. Chucky could be sure that the brothers and Daljae committed the crime together. Seebeck's identity was exposed. The truth would become clear when she could know who Chi-sik really was. The factory name on the uniform was similar to her. Chucky went to the graveyard. She noticed the woman who was buried next to her grandma. The late person wore the same uniform as Chi-sik's. The frame was offset, so she curiously opened it. It was Chi-sik on other half of the photo. She wanted to find out the identity of this woman by calling all the contacts written in Chi-sik's notebook, which she found at his dumpling shop. Finally, she contacted Chi-sik's old colleague. They used to work in the same factory. The woman in the photo was Hee-soo, who was Chi-sik's fiancée. She was known as the belle of the factory. Right before their wedding, she was sexually assaulted by a congressman. She decided to put her life to an end, while Chi-sik was arrested and tortured. At this time, Chucky realized that Chi-sik revenged on Ki-do by taking his father's life. She went to see Hee-soo's family to learn about her relationship with Seebeek. Although the signboard was too old, she still saw Hee-soo's name on it. When she mentioned Hee-soo to an old woman, the old woman seemed to lose her control. Based on her vague memories, Chucky learned that Hee-soo was Seebeck's biological sister. That was why they had taken the revenge together. What did Byung-chun do to this family that year? She went to see his granddaughter. Before Byung-chun's death, Lee-yun told Chucky that her grandpa deserved the death. Lee-yun's emotion changed when Chucky posed a question. At her 15, Chucky's grandma worked as a house helper at her home and accidentally knew Byung-chun's secret. On the way leaving their villa, Lee-yun saw Byung-chun pushing Chucky's grandma off the stairs. He even hit her to death. That truth tore Chucky's heart apart. The one who took her grandma's life brought her up, so she devoted herself to his company for years. Chucky felt very regretful. She cried next to her grandma's grave until dawn. She determined to get justice for her own grandmother. By exposing the crimes of those late men, she brought a pile of documents along her visit to Seebeck. They no longer confronted each other. Chucky told him the fact that she found out and asked him to tell her everything he knew. He told her in tears that Chi-sik got his whole family involved when demanding justice for Soo-hee. Chi-beck's father was cruelly tortured. His mother went crazy when her husband was electrocuted, so he had lived on Chi-sik. After all, it was all caused by the officers 30 years ago. The one who was behind it was Byung-chun, who raised Chucky up. Everything was clear. The descendants of the two victims cried without a sound. Chucky wanted to bring justice to Seebeck, but she didn't know that the officers couldn't prove that Seebeck was related to the assault. He confessed to Kyung-jin about what happened that year. If possible, he wished he could tear those people apart, but he studied law to give them legal punishment. Kyung-jin felt so sorry for what his family had been through. Anyway, it really happened to them. They had no reason to continue to detain him. Seebeck was released from the police station. However, Chi-sik didn't stop yet. He wanted to get rid of the one who caused his fiancée's death. Ki-do was busy with the election. He received a message from unknown person. It was the video of how Chi-sik get rid of Byung-chun and denounced their crime 30 years ago. Chi-sik asked to see Ki-do or he would post the video online. Ki-do was very worried about his election. Facing Chi-sik, Ki-do admitted that he had no intention of eliminating him and his father. he just wanted them to be deeply sorry. Chi-sik was very angry, yet, he tried to calm himself down, because he was carrying a hidden camera, to record Ki-doo's true face, when Ki-doo angrily strangled Chi-sik's neck. Seebeck and Chuck-hee arrived, taking the opportunity. Chi-sik turned around and fell backwards. It was to create the evidences that Ki-doo pushed him off the building. Chi-sik was the most loyal man in the series. He got rid of all those who caused his fiancée's death. At the last moment of his life, he recalled his beautiful moments. It was a perfect ending for him. He sacrificed his own life to shift the blame on Ki-doo. Though Ki-doo caused 2 deaths, he was only sentenced to 10 years in prison. Perhaps it was the screenwriter's design. Seebeck and Chuck-hee planned to get married, but before that, they had to complete their mission. Sitting on the bench at the Supreme Court of Korea were families of the victims who lost their lives due to the rich men. Chuck-hee defended her grandmother, father and sister of Seebeck. Though the defendants were gone, their crimes could not be forgiven just because their lives had ended.